the One Piece manga is back again with chapter 1185, titled Y'all Better Buzz Off. And in this chapter, we continue on with Brook's backstory, which I am absolutely loving so far, and I honestly can't comprehend why I see some people complaining about the placement of this backstory. Yes, it might not be optimal to put it in the middle of the major fight between Loki and Emu, but the contents of the backstory itself is pretty good, and it's putting a spotlight on a much beloved character in Brook, which is a character I've grown to love more and more with each arc that passes. Brook gets my seal of approval to pause any fight he wants if he's gonna give me more depth to his character. Anyways, the chapter continues with young Brook's story right after he was hospitalized last chapter. Now he's with young Prince Leuven, who asks Candel to make Brook her page, which basically means he's her apprentice, which she accepts with no hesitation. Young Brook is in awe of the scenery inside the palace, since he's only used to seeing garbage all around him, and of course he admires what he calls cute babes on his way, which greatly frustrates Candel. We see him attending the school he was admiring last chapter as well, but he refuses to wear the school uniform because it would cramp his style, and I admire that. I always hated wearing the school uniform. It felt really demeaning to me personally. Anywho, he goes to sleep with his new guitar in his hand, and he's hanging out with other Corpse Guard members. We see him training with Candel in the way of the sword, and he asks Candel if she has a type of guy she's into, which she doesn't give a straight answer. She says that there is one man, but he's out of her league, which we can assume the type of man she's into is Prince Leuven type, and we also learn that she's training so hard just to be by his side. He keeps following her and asks her pretty inappropriate questions, let's just say, and she teaches him to be more polite and use honorifics when he's talking to people. Then we see the first time he utters his most famous quote, where he asks for a lady's panties, which is a pretty inappropriate question, but in a polite manner, which is funny. Now laugh. And that concludes the flashback within the flashback that we're focusing on. Now we're back to the original flashback of Brook. Are you following still? He continues talking to Princess Shuri about her mother, describing her as the sun that shines over the whole nation, and that once a government ship with celestial dragons on board sailed to Esperia, the pressure overwhelmed her so much that she got bedridden for months, which can be categorized as something a little unusual. She's the Corpse Guard captain, and I understand that it is a stressful job to hold, and a more stressful job when you add celestial dragons into the mix. But I don't know, seems a little fishy that when celestial dragons came from the Holy Land, that's when she fell ill. But it could be just the stress, I'm just saying. Then Brook tells Princess Shuri that after that, her father, the prince, ascended to the throne and became the king and married her mother, who recovered eventually. And not long after that, she was born. And he re-emphasizes how much her parents mean to him and how much of a shame it would be if they died while he's in charge. Wink wink, nudge nudge. Well, the day goes on. Princess Shuri keeps hanging out with Brook. They go to train in the way of the sword, and on their way, while just hanging out, they meet King Leuven and Queen Candel, with King Leuven instructing Princess Shuri to call him father from now on, because she's not a little girl anymore, and that she is growing into this royal family, and that she needs to be more etiquette, like Brook was taught. She gets injured while training, and Brook comes at her with aid. They find a puppy in the rain, like Crocodile once did, and they cover him with an umbrella. She's getting taller, rejecting more suitors, and still frustrated at Brook's antics. We see her chasing him with ghosts, which we know from Thriller Bark that is his biggest fear, and they're hanging out in the garbage pile where Brook and Prince Leuven once upon a time used to hang out with some cursed fish or some fish people over there. I don't know what these guys are, but they're pretty cursed, in my opinion at least. Brook seemingly gets injured at some point, and Princess Shuri learns to cook and take care of him. Then, when Princess Shuri becomes 15 years of age, something very unfortunate happens to the kingdom of Asperia. The kingdom itself becomes encumbered with thick mist that decayed both their signature instruments and the health of the citizens. Though Brook still seems in pretty high spirits, the kingdom as a whole is suffering. Not only that, one of the casualties of this deadly mist is Queen Candel herself, who was beloved not only by the king and his daughter, but the entire kingdom as a whole. And even after the mist has dissipated from the kingdom, the effects of it still lingered. The kingdom is in ruin, and they cannot afford the heavenly tribute to stay a nation within the protection of the world government. As the days fly by, Princess Shuri keeps improving her sword skills, and Brook comments on how she sometimes moves as if she can see the future, which is a hint to her being somewhat more proficient with observation hockey than most. Princess Shuri asks Brook about his dream of becoming a pirate, but Brook tells her that he's more than glad to set aside his dreams to be by her father's side. Then, right after that, we cut to a pretty badly beaten King Leuven, who declares the world government as his enemy and that this is war. Brook, without hesitation, accepts the fact that the world government itself, and we know how vast their reach is and how mighty they are, but Brook's loyalty to King Leuven is to a fault. If he asks him to go to war against the world, he accepts it with zero hesitation, which is one of my favorite of Brook's characteristics. I love how loyal he is and how much he's willing to do for the people that he trusts so dearly, even if the other Corps Guard members are a little skeptical and are asking the king of the reasoning to which he's declaring war on the world government. And he tells them that the world government actually demanded 1,000 of his civilians to be slaves, which he finds abhorrent and completely refuses to sell out any of his civilians to slavery, which is pretty admirable. But the alternative is still pretty devastating, not only to himself, but to his entire kingdom. I understand that it is a hard, and I do mean hard, decision to make, and a pretty big ask for anyone in charge to even consider, and personally, I don't know if it is the right course of action to take, because don't get me wrong, I'm not into selling people to slavery, but as far as I understand, the world government didn't specify what type of people he would be sending. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Asperia Kingdom has a dungeon with a bunch of prisoners, murderers, and rapists and such. Why not send them to save your kingdom? But it's pretty understandable that he doesn't want to build the prosperity of his kingdom on the back of slavery. We see Brook strolling the streets with a bunch of civilians coming to him to understand what is going on, and even though the people around him are distraught, asking about another nation in the West Blue that also disappeared due to them not being able to be part of the world government, and I don't believe that it is any nation that we know of, because O'Hara is yet to disappear at this point, neither does God Valley, so it's probably just another nation that was wiped out not all that long ago that the people still do remember and have records of. Anyways, Brook keeps singing on and on just to cheer those distraught people, and he somewhat succeeds in bringing a smile in these hard times. The world government ships land on the island and they're rampaging through, burning everything in their way, the garbage heaps, the castle, the garden where they used to stroll, and Brook cuts through them like a hot knife through butter, heading straight for the palace where the king is, and to his great shock, he finds his beloved king laying down dead in front of his daughter, who looks demonically infused. So does the corpse of the king, and with another mysterious man who's smoking a cigar, with the silhouette of Marcus Mars's full transformation right behind the king. So, who could this man be? My theory is that this was actually Marcus Mars's predecessor, and a part of the Gorosei is what I wanted to say at first, but he doesn't seem to be wearing the same black suit that they all wear, and is more likely a God's Knight member who has a deep covenant mark with Imu. But at this point, it could be either or, because we know that Imu can possess the Gorosei and his God's Knights as well, and Dami Reversi anyone basically other than the Nidhogg and the Nika fruit users. But if his plan was to kill the king, why Dami Reversi him, then use his daughter to kill him? Why not just transform just her and have her kill him? Wouldn't that just make him normal again, as we saw with the giants? Honestly, this Dami Reversi gimmick keeps getting more and more confusing every time it's shown on page. I literally don't understand what is happening. When the giants got Dami reversed, then killed, they turned back to normal. But now the king has been Dami reversed and killed, and is apparently dead. Why, if you want him dead, would you Dami reverse him? Just do her instead? I don't know. Anyways, this was a pretty good chapter with a lot of good character development for Brook and pretty tragic events that unfolded. There's seemingly gonna be another break this week, so it'll give us at least some time to discuss what actually happened in this chapter. So if you have any thoughts on what's going on, please leave a comment down below. Other than that, bye.